Faker may be in trouble here. Deathmark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the moves! Faker, what was that?
Whether you are a gamer or non-gamer, League of Legends player, or perfectly well-adjusted human being, I think we can all understand the idea of celebrating an elite performance. One that elevates the game into an art form, something that only that player in that specific moment in time could have pulled off with that kind of magic. I humbly present to you my breakdown of that one Faker Zed play. For those of you who don't already know, the clip that you just watched is of a pro player called Faker playing on a character called Zed. And the play here that he makes not only holds up extremely well after an entire decade of pro play improving, but it also requires like hundreds of rewatches just to kind of understand what's going on. And so that's why in this video, I am going to try to explain the game of League of Legends in the next 30 seconds, as well as give you all the exposition you need to understand the following breakdown of this clip. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. League of Legends is quite literally the worst game ever created. It is a game we somehow cannot stop playing, but it's basically the Stanford Prison experiment where all your teammates are kids who haven't developed empathy yet. It's a 5v5 team game where each of the 10 people who are playing get to choose one of 167 playable characters in this roster. You and your 4 other teammates try to defeat the other 5 people on the enemy team and destroy their base. Alright, cool. Now that you know the game kind of ish, let's talk about the clip itself. In the clip, we will be watching a one-on-one duel between 2 League of Legends professionals. One being Ryu, somebody who has had numerous accolades and top 3 finishes in international tournaments, and the other one is Faker. His actions will speak for himself. Now, luckily for me, these 2 players are actually playing the exact same character. Normally this doesn't happen in professional games, but both Ryu and Faker are playing the character Zed. The character Zed, like many of the other playable champions in the game, has 3 basic abilities and 1 ultimate ability. They are as follows: his Q ability, Razor Shuriken, his W ability, Living Shadow, his E ability, Shadow Slash, and his R, which is his ultimate, Deathmark. Dude's edgier than Bo Burnham when he was like 16. Now I'm going to really quickly explain what all these abilities do. I know the brain rot is already settling in and you're like, this is how League of Legends players live, no wonder why they're miserable. You are correct, but please just bear with me and we'll get through this together soon. Starting with his W, whenever you press that key, it places a shadow clone underneath wherever the cursor is. This shadow clone will stay on the field for around 5-ish seconds and copy any of the other basic abilities you use, so that's Q or E. If you press W a second time, somewhere in that 5-ish second window, you will also swap places with that shadow clone. His Q is exactly what it sounds like. He throws a shuriken in a line in the direction of your mouse. Whatever gets hit by that shuriken will take damage. If there are any Living Shadows, W shadow clones nearby, then they will also throw a Q in a straight line in the same direction. Now, his E, the last basic ability that we need to talk about, is really, really simple. Whenever you press that key, he does damage in a circle. I'm doing this because he does like a pirouette or something. Oh yeah, and also his shadow clones do it too. Now, Zed's ultimate ability, his R. It's a little bit complicated, but I believe in you. You got this. Basically, when you press R over an enemy champion, he does a couple of things. Number 1, he disappears for like 0.6 seconds. This means that he's untargetable and nobody can do damage to it, and he can dodge a bunch of abilities with that. Number 2, the enemy champion will be marked with a death mark. That's that glowing red orb thing you see here. Over the period of the next 3 seconds, it will remember all the damage Zed did to that champion, and then at the end of those 3 seconds, it will deal a percentage of that damage it remembered. And finally, number 3, one of those shadow clones that we talked about earlier will appear behind that enemy champion. You can press R a second time, that R2, and you will swap places with that shadow. Exact same thing as the W. All right, now we're on the home stretch. The other resources that these players use during the clip are summoner spells and items. Each player in the game gets to choose 2 summoner spells, and these 2 players happen to have chosen the same 2 summoner spells. They are Flash and Ignite. Flash basically does this, teleports you a short distance, and Ignite basically does this, does a little bit of damage over time. You should probably not announce that you're using the former in a school zone. Alright, now the items. Both players have an item called Blade of the Ruined King. It has an active, which means that you can click the item to have some sort of effect. In this case, when you click the item over an enemy champion, you gain some portion of their health and movement speed. TLDR, enemy guy goes slow and feel worse. You go faster and feel better. Now the other one is QSS, or Quicksilver Sash. This is an item that has an active which removes all debuffs. What that means in this context is that you can remove the death mark. It won't do the damage after the end of the 3 seconds, it's just gone. Oh, there is one last thing you do need to know about, which is auto attacks. Basically, when you right click an enemy character, your character will like throw hands or like a shoe or sock or whatever these are. All right, I think that's everything. Non-gamers, gamers, let's fucking do this. Here we see the clip starts on Ryu. This is the Zed with the blue health bar. Ryu catches up to Faker by both using W and then W2 to teleport to Shadow Clone. As he's doing this, he also presses E, which does the Shadow Slash and does a little bit of damage to Faker. Moving forward, we can see that Ryu then autos Faker once, doing a little bit of damage. Now the blue tower here switches targeting onto Faker. This is a structure that does a lot of damage to you if there are no allies nearby. Faker is about to take one tower shot, which is going to deal a lot of damage right here. Then Ryu uses his Blade of the Rune King on Faker, stealing a little bit of health, and then finally follows it up with the second auto attack that does damage. In the same split second, somehow Ryu has also pressed Ignite onto Faker. There is now a little bit of damage that is ticking over time onto his health bar. At this point, it is pretty clear. Faker is not looking too hot. His health bar is low, and Ryu still got plenty of health left. In response to this, we see that Faker uses his own Blade of the Rune King onto Ryu, and then immediately presses R to ult. He disappears from the map for half a second, and in that time is probably thinking how he can get out of this insane situation. The moment he comes down, he uses his E to try to do damage onto Ryu. Ryu, being one step ahead of Faker, presses his own ult onto Faker so that when he disappears, he can dodge that E damage. And this is where things get absolutely insane. The moment Ryu comes down from his ult, he presses E to try to do some damage onto Faker, who of course now has the death mark on him. However, Faker, in an attempt to dodge this, presses R a second time to go to this Shadow Clone here. Now, I've rewatched this 100 times, and I still cannot tell if he actually gets hit by the Shadow Slash, or if that damage is from something else and he actually successfully dodges it. Someone comment below if you know the answer. Anyways, immediately after Faker teleports to his ult Shadow Clone, we can see Ryu placing down his W Shadow Clone over here. Now, to underscore exactly how insane all this is all happening so quickly that that Shadow Slash I was talking about earlier, that goes off on this Shadow Clone here. What is going on? Moving forward, we see Faker make a pivotal decision with his item, the Quicksilver Sash. As we talked about earlier, this removes the death mark, so now he doesn't have to worry about any further damage being compounded onto him at the end of those 3 seconds. Before this moment, this duel was a foregone conclusion. If Ryu had missed all of his next auto attacks and abilities, the death mark would have popped regardless and done enough damage to finish him off. What was once an impossibility is now an improbability. Ryu goes on to press W a second time to pop to a Shadow Clone here. This is presumably either to dodge an auto attack that is incoming from Faker as he's clearly approaching him, or to predict what's about to happen next, which is Faker throwing out a Q to do damage to him. Now, this is one of those moments that I genuinely cannot tell if Faker is just actually a time traveler or he's just insanely lucky. Because here we see that Ryu does correctly predict that Faker is throwing out a Q, but Faker somehow manages to hit one of the Qs anyways. Because of the fact that these two are along the same axes, it does not matter if Ryu is in his current position or if he switches to his W. Regardless, they will get hit by this one Q. Mind-blowing. As his shuriken is hitting, he's also using Ignite on him. Now, just as a quick reminder, Ignite does count as a source of damage you're dealing to them. And the reason why this is important is because Death Mark is still active on Ryu, and Ignite counts as a source of damage that will later be compounded onto the end of that 3 seconds. Now we see both Zeds barreling head-on towards each other. They go to exchange auto attacks. We can see both animations starting up in each of the characters. Now this is where Faker once again blows my goddamn mind with his genius. The moment that the damage is registered, before his auto attack animation is even done, he flashes away. What used to be a trade of 2 instances of damage that were equal has now become a one-sided thing where Faker has auto-attacked and dealt damage, and Ryu is left with nothing. And for the non-gamers who are wondering why I'm so animated about this, you have to understand that these are like millisecond windows, alright? If he's too early, the damage does not go off, and he might not have enough damage to finish Ryu. If he's too late, he takes the damage from Ryu, and he's probably just dead on the spot. This is crazy. Now surely, nailing like a millisecond time window couldn't get more impressive, right? Wrong. Faker is a god who can squeeze water from stone, and we soon see that Faker not only has used his flash to dodge the auto attack, but also the following Q that Ryu immediately throws out. This makes complete sense from Ryu's perspective. Not just like 2 frames ago, Faker was in between Ryu's ult shadow and Ryu himself. Throwing out the Q means 2 Qs intersecting into a point-blank range attack that for sure finishes him if the auto doesn't somehow go through. Both of these miss because of this flash. 2 birds, 1 stone in a millisecond time window on like a world stage? Doesn't get better than this. And just a couple of frames later, we see that Faker's death mark on Ryu pops, dealing a crap ton of damage. What once was an impossibility then became an improbability, and now is just somehow a dead even fight. In what looks to kind of be like a desperation play, Ryu uses his own flash, one of the last remaining resources he has, to try to close the gap onto Faker. He just needs to fit in like one auto attack or one ability, and Faker is still dead, and we can all forget this happened. But Faker is not done. In a last breath of brilliance, Faker uses his W to gain space from Ryu. After using the W, Faker hits the E, and the shadow that just took his place finishes off Ryu. And the rest is history. Now, how about we rewatch the clip in full speed? I left in graphics for whenever Faker or Ryu presses one of their inputs. So on this side, you'll see Faker's, and on this side, you'll see Ryu's.
Like, even though I only have a man on the floor, I think he's in the bed. Oh, Faker maybe in trouble. Your death mark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the moves. Faker, what was that?
When you hear the cast in the background Monty say, "What was that?" I'm pretty sure he wasn't joking. This was like 2 years before the insect play made it onto the main stage. If you haven't seen this, I want you to watch this clip and just listen to the gasps in the background for the audience reacting to a play that takes like 2 or 3 buttons to hit.
Q's in, ward's back, kicks in. That is so hard to execute.
Right, to contextualize this, you are pressing Q, then you are pressing your ward button, then you're pressing W, and then you're pressing R. It is complicated. It happens in a very short period of time. It is nothing compared to what we just saw. This happens 2 years later, and you have to understand how quickly the game advances year after year. Nowadays, your average gold player, quite literally run-of-the-mill 50 percentile, can pull off this combo easily. This is a man who has been playing 10 years ahead of his time and will forever be known in our hearts as the greatest to ever play League of Legends. To round this video out, I have kind of a cheesy message for the non-gamers who have stuck around this long. Thank you for giving this video a chance. It's not a secret in this day and age that there's still people who don't really understand why esports is a thing or why you would watch people play games. And hey, I get it. You're sitting at your desk watching somebody else sit at their desk pressing buttons. But if I've done my job correctly, hopefully you sort of understand that this is coming from the exact same place as all of those sports montages. The reason why this video has 1 million views on YouTube, or why this guy's face is just so fun to rewatch over and over again, is the same reason why you laugh and cry and cheer for all of those moments in those sports games. We are watching people push the potential of what a perfect human being can be and making the thing that we love to do an art form. If you think I've deserved it, consider liking and subscribing, and maybe even send this to a non-gamer friend or family member that you know. As always, thank you so much for watching. Dude, oh no fucking way, dude. Has my fly been down this whole time? Oh, I am not re-recording all of that.